What is up, everyone? Welcome back to the last five turns. And this is another Monday Modern episode. Supposedly, this is a match. Now, I had some technical difficulties not knowing that I was on mute. So this is going to be like a match analysis instead. So let's go. I chose to play in the modern two-player queue where you pay 2 tickets to play so that I can start grinding my play points. That's basically the plan here. Now I choose to play first, and I remember that I kept this weird looking hand because I have like a bunch of cantrip, but that's basically it. Besides, I don't know what my opponent is, so please don't judge me for keeping that. And then, what happened? I think my opponent here is... I think it's black. Yeah, it is black. Alright. And then, he chose to play Raven's Crime. So with the first card revealed, I think I already have an idea that this is going to be an 8-rack deck. So my opponent will just continue to mess up with my hand, which is a bit okay because I really didn't keep a good looking hand anyway in the first place. But I have to rely on my card draw on the next few cards that I'll be drawing. And then this Mutavault is also very annoying. Yeah, I think he's just gonna cast Raven's Crime here over and over again, which is really annoying as well because even his lands are like discard spells. By discarding the land, paying 1 black mana, and then you can retrace Raven's Crime and you can make your opponent discard again. Although yes, I am choosing the card that I wanted to discard, but still, in his end, that's really good. I mean, 1 swamp for a discard card. Now I chose to cast Opt here, and then I found Cling to Dust, my new pet card. And in this scenario is one good example of why Cling to Dust is really good. This is where he actually shines. In this kind of... Since my opponent's abusing Raven's Crime, I can just Cling to Dust that card and then it's done. It's gone. So, one issue gone. But that is definitely not how it ends. So, oh, I almost forgot. Here is our flavor text for the day. Yeah. Anyway, so yeah, he's not stopping there. He has Inquisition. Besides, the only thing he did is to cast Raven's Crime and discard 2 swamps, which allowed him to make me discard 2 cards. So he is not yet running out of gas at any point of the game. However, I am running out of gas here because I only have what? Kaya's Guile, and then a Hallowed Fountain. And then now he's casting Shrieking Affliction, which is not really scary yet. At least it's not yet scary. However, now this is the part where I was like thinking, should I play that land or should I not? I really wish I didn't, but in a way having 4 lands is still much better than having 3. Besides, my deck revolves around playing with 4 mana. I mean, you can have cryptic mana. Basically, it's just cryptic mana. That's the reason why I choose to have 4 mana. And also, I can cast them both if I want to. That's why I chose to play that land. However, my opponent has something else in mind. Yep, so he is casting Davriel, I think. That's the name of the card. One of the War of the Spark Planeswalkers, the uncommon ones. And yeah, I think if you need a home for this card, this is the right deck for that card. Because it's an additional Shrieking Affliction and 8 racks. So here's another mistake that I did. Look at this part. So he cast Davriel. I didn't do anything until after he cast it, until he activates his ability. And then look what I found. I casted Opt right after he casted it. Instead, I should have casted Opt before or while Davriel is on stop. So at least I could counter it. I could have countered it. At least I am one less of a problem. But I didn't, so again, instead of a gameplay, this is going to turn out to be a match analysis, which I really don't like because I'm looking at my own misplay. But that's fine. At least I can learn from. And besides, that's the purpose of this gameplay anyway. That's the purpose of me recording my games, so that I can see where did I go wrong. I think that's a song. So yeah, now I have 2 things to worry about: Davriel and Shrieking Affliction. Now I was thinking of casting Kaya's Guile already at the end of his turn, but I choose not to because I wanted to lessen the damage that I take from Shrieking Affliction. However, I didn't draw any gas. I just draw a land. So I'll have to pass a turn here. Now, yeah. So this is, I have no choice. I'm forced to cast Kaya's Guile here. So I guess I've chosen I've chosen to create a 1/1 token and then gain 4 life. I was thinking of exiling the graveyard, but it doesn't make any sense. He has no cards in there that matters to him at the moment. So gaining 4 life at this time, or at that time that I was thinking what modes should I choose, makes a lot more sense. What I was really hoping is that he activates Mutavault, and then I make him sacrifice a creature, and then I create 1/1 token. However, well, it's not gonna happen because he has Davriel, which I should have countered anyway earlier. I know. And then he's gonna make me discard. And then he casted Nether Spirit. Well, it's like a redundant creature card, that if it dies, and if it's the only creature in the graveyard, then you can bring it back. You can cast it back. Now here's where I started taking a lot of damage. So Shrieking Affliction and then Davriel. However, I draw Kaya. And Kaya has that second ability that you can exile any card, non-land card, 9 land permanent with 1 mana cost or less. So at least I've managed to kill Davriel with my 1/1 token. And then I'm going to be casting Kaya here to deal with the Shrieking Affliction. So issue number 2 solved. However, we are now facing defeat with the Nether Spirit and Mutavault, which I can't do anything about. What he's going to do here is definitely he's going to kill Kaya here. I'm not sure though if he activated Mutavault here. He did not. So he also, I don't know why he chose not to. He only have 1 card left in his hand. I don't have any cards left in my hand. So I'm not sure why he chose not to activate Mutavault. Because he can just attack. He can just attack. Oh, okay, now it makes sense. So he chose not to because he is casting Liliana here. Okay, makes sense. And I think I'm about to lose. I'm about to lose game 1. He's gonna make me discard that Fatal Push. The funny part here, which is for me another misplay, is I know I can't destroy that, but I was like playing around and sure, let me just cast it. However, what I should have done is to just let him remember when I have that Cling to Dust in the graveyard? It costs 4 to cast Escape and then exile 5 cards in my graveyard. That is what I should have done. I should have just started exiling my opponent's graveyard 1 by 1 and started casting Cling to Dust, and maybe, just maybe, I may have drawn something relevant to not to lose like this. See, if I chose, or if it, never mind. Because I could have just casted Cling to Dust. That will draw me a card, which is going to be Path to Exile. At least I have some sort of a removal, so I can delay the damage for another turn. Or maybe I can be drawing another card for, I don't know. Maybe I am still going to lose game 1 because he finally drew the rack, but at least I may have drawn something relevant here if I just stop playing around. Because I was really playing around that time. Anyway, so yeah, I think that's my last attempt to survive. I think I'm gonna concede here on the next turn, depending on what I draw. But I think I'm... Yeah, that's when I realized, because if you'd notice, I was looking at the graveyard. I looked at Cling to Dust. And then I remember that it costs 4 to activate. Although the next card that I drew isn't really going to help me, but at least I may have done something differently. So here I took out all the rats. I've included Kambal because it's very similar to Burn, where my opponent is just casting one spell to another, and Kambal is really good with that kind of opponent. I also took out one Cryptic Command because I feel like Cryptic is a little slow with this kind of opponent. I also took out that Spell Snare that I just drew that didn't help me with anything. And then I decided, I was thinking I'd really like to put Vendilion Click here as an additional creature. I was thinking my opponent is really light on removal, and seeing that I'm a control based deck, my opponent would probably already took out some of his creature removals. I think I also took out, because I was really thinking of if I wanted to add Narset here, because that's like an additional card to have in my hand. So yeah, I've decided to take Path to Exile because my opponent is also light in creatures. So having two path and 2 Fatal Push, for me at that time, I feel like that's enough. I also took out Remand because I think Remand is one of those cards that really doesn't matter here. Countering Remanding Thoughtseize is So the game plan here, as always, is going to be always keep your opening hand regardless, because again, my opponent will just rip my hand apart. So it doesn't matter whether I keep a good looking hand, or as long as I have lands to play. That's the game plan. Keep 7 cards as always, as much as possible. So I choose to play first. I have 2 lands and a counter and a few removal. So of course my opponent is going to make me discard a bunch of cards. So Inqui. Yeah, if depending on what my opponent's holding, if I'm in his position, I would choose to remove either Mana Leak or Purge. Because Path, so he chose Mana Leak. Because Path isn't really gonna affect him at all. He doesn't have a lot of creatures. And then Purge, if he has no permanent yet to cast, that would make him that I can destroy or exile, then Purge will not matter. Mana Leak, however, makes it affects him or Ken right away. Okay, so now my opponent choose to Thoughtseize me. This is the part where I would definitely choose Vendilion Click here. But he did not. He chose, which makes sense. He chose Celestial Purge because he is going to cast Shrieking Affliction. But if I'm in his position, I would choose Vendilion Click, knowing that I am light on removals. And anyway, that's his choice. Also, there's one other thing I noticed here. Since game 1, I'm always... I think the entire game 1 I didn't draw any land that produces black mana. However, since my opponent has Urborg, Tomb of Yawgmoth, he's giving me black mana. So he decided to cast Liliana of the Veil. I don't have any choice. Well, actually, I really don't have any choice. He knows what I'm holding. And then since I have two paths, I know he doesn't have a lot of creatures. That's an easy choice. I discarded path to exile here. And then, yeah, that's where I'm gonna start casting Vendilion Click here. Well, that's the best moment. He's tapped out. He only have one card left in his hand. He's got Liliana, which he already used the first ability. So I can cast Vendilion Click at the end of his turn, attack Liliana, and then he can't make me sacrifice Vendilion Click. And then what is he holding? Because yeah, alright, Smallpox. So you can put that Smallpox at the bottom of your library. So I guess that makes sense. That's probably why he's confident, although a little bit overconfident, that he can deal with my Vendilion Click. Now here's the fun part. I drew one of my sideboard cards, Kambal. So I'm gonna attack Liliana first. I'm gonna cast Kambal here. Now this is another misplay. I was really thinking if I'd like to play Field of Ruins or not, because I really want to make sure that I have at least two cards in hand. But so I think I chose not to play it. However, here's what happened next. Remember, I'm tapped out. So he casted, or he played Mutavault, which I am saving my Field of Ruins for only for that purpose, to destroy Mutavault. Now he casted Davriel, which means both of my cards in my hand are gonna go into the graveyard. Wherein, if I chose earlier to just, choose to just play it earlier, then I'm only discarding one card, and I have Field of Ruins to deal with Mutavault. However, my opponent took two, or loses 2 life, and I gained 2 life in that exchange by simply just letting him cast Davriel. So Kambal, as I have expected, is doing its job as I planned for him to do his job. So I'm gonna take some hit here with Davriel and Shrieking Affliction. However, my luck hasn't ran out yet. So I can kill both of the Planeswalkers with Vendilion Click and Kambal attacking both of them. I mean, each of them. And then I can cast Kaya to once again exile that Shrieking Affliction. So that went really well for a deck that is well, I guess again, my luck hasn't run out yet, because it could go anywhere. So my opponent just decided to quit here. I guess it makes sense. I'm pulling ahead. I have 2 creatures. He can't deal with any of those. I have just casted Kaya, which he can kill anyway on that turn. So we've decided to just move on to game 3. Now I didn't change anything because I was like, again, same game plan. We're gonna keep 7 cards. However, here's a funny thing here. My opponent is supposed to choose to play first, right? He did not. He chose to draw and make me. He decided to. Yeah, he chose to draw and I to play first. That's an interesting decision, but maybe because he is wanting me not to draw another card, since I don't know, since he wants me to discard more cards than to draw more cards. Also, my opponent mulligan to 6, by the way. So he's got another Raven's Crime. So he started it the same way as game 1. And I don't have Cling to Dust on that Raven's Crime, so I chose to discard Ghost Quarter. Why? Because I wanted my lands to... Because my only option there, or the things that I was thinking about, is either Ghost Quarter or Field of Ruins. Field of Ruins replaces itself after you sacrifice it. Ghost Quarter doesn't. So yeah. And then I wanted the rest of it. Now here, in case my opponent chooses to make me discard another card again, and let's say he uses Raven's Crime, I will definitely discard Path to Exile there. However, my opponent chooses not to do that. Rather, he casted Shrieking Affliction. Now I was thinking if I wanted to counter Shrieking Affliction, but I was like, no, that's fine. I have Kaya next turn, and then I can exile that. However, there's the Rack. Now I can still choose to exile the Rack the following turn. However, having two things and the possibility of Kaya dying after me exiling Shrieking Affliction, I just chose to counter the Rack instead. Just to be sure. Because, again, having the Rack and Shrieking Affliction both in play is definitely scary. So I want to make sure there's nothing like that in play as much as possible. Now I've learned from my previous game, so I choose to play Field of Ruins this time. And so, yeah, casted Kaya, exiled Shrieking Affliction. And this time, this game, also my opponent have decided not to use the Urborg. Now he's not giving me any black mana. However, I have fetches. And I also have Water Grave in my opening hand, I think. If I'm not mistaken. So yeah, I think I got the black mana. Now, my opponent casted Liliana. As I've discussed earlier, my choice would be to discard Path. However, I also have a land, and I wanted to keep Path for now because I already have three mana. I have Vendilion Click and Path to Exile, so I can cast them both. So I was really thinking, nope, we're not gonna discard Path, not yet. So I started using Kaya here, and also I think I'm gonna pass a turn. My opponent, I think he knows. Okay, so he finally choose to use Liliana's ability here first. So he chose Liliana's ability first. So I got no choice. I have to discard Path to Exile. Because I was like thinking, okay, I wanted to keep Jace. Because I only need one land more, and then I can cast Jace. And that's going to be a huge advantage for me to have Jace in play. However, yeah, my opponent casted Smallpox. So the Jace game plan is already out of the window. We are going to discard Jace. But I was like thinking, how should I go about casting Vendilion? So let's just float one mana and let Smallpox resolve. He doesn't have any cards in his land anyway. I mean, yeah, he doesn't have any cards in his hand anyway. So we're sure that Vendilion Click will survive. And then I've decided to sacrifice Field of Ruin. And then, yeah, I'm gonna be casting Vendilion Click here. I'm not sure if I remember that my opponent already used Liliana's ability here, but I think I was scared casting Vendilion Click here because I forgot that my opponent already used Liliana of the Veil's ability. Also, I really have to win this game as quickly as possible because I'm 10 minutes down to my time. However, my opponent still has a 14 minute lead or minutes left on his end. So I really have to win this quickly. So yeah, now I have Vendilion, and my opponent's passing turn back to me, so I can finally attack Liliana here. Well, so I drew, I drew Celestial Purge, and what's the best way to use it? To destroy or exile Liliana. So instead of attacking Liliana, I am now attacking my opponent, which is really good. Well, at this point, if my opponent is not going to be drawing any gas, I'm going to be pulling ahead. So yeah, so my opponent drew Mutavault, which is still okay, because he's most likely going to attack Kaya here. However, I drew Field of Ruin. So for that past consecutive turns back to me, I'm getting the cards that I need exactly when I need it. If that isn't great, I'm not sure what is. So my opponent decided to attack using Mutavault, which he knows that I have Field of Ruin. I'm not sure what he's thinking. And I also don't have any cards left in my hand, so I'm not really sure what he's thinking here. But guess what? I can finally ultimate Kaya here. Now, why I've decided to just ultimate Kaya here is I was thinking, what if my opponent drew a card that can minus Kaya's loyalty, or maybe a creature that can damage her, or maybe an actual planeswalker removal, because black does have that. So instead, I am not gambling of taking another turn of exiling anything in the graveyard. I'd rather just ultimate Kaya now and then cast another Kaya anyway, since I draw another Kaya. But maybe if I didn't, maybe I'd choose to still activate Kaya here, because my opponent's just down to 2 and he still got a creature, and he didn't drew any significant card here at this point. I think, yeah. So my opponent finally quit. So I've managed to survive that, and I finally earned my first 30 play points. So we are still 270 or 260 play points behind, so that we can start, or we can finally rejoin the Modern League. But this is at least the start, and it's a really good match. It's a nail biter for me, because you don't face that kind of deck all the time, and if you do, you're not prepared. You're probably most likely not, or your sideboard doesn't have anything against that kind of deck, because you don't face that kind of deck all the time. You're preparing for the decks that you would normally face in the modern meta. So the reason why I'm not confident enough to beat that kind of deck is because, one, it discards and disrupts your hand, 2, I'm not prepared. I don't have any sideboard cards for that kind of deck. And 3, I don't have a lot of experience playing against that kind of deck because, again, you don't see that deck all the time. However, I enjoyed playing that. I really enjoyed that game. It's a nail biter. I could lose. I could have lost. I was just really lucky, especially in game 3 where I drew the cards that I need when I needed it the most. So, well, I'm gonna start playing and grinding, and hopefully we can join the Modern League. Now, if you like this video, and I hope you do, hit like, get subscribe. If you don't, you can always press that other button. For now, ciao.